All right, everybody, we're going to get started. Hello, friends. My name is Gabe Murillo. I'm the head coach and director of recruiting for the Shannon Self-Debate Program at the University of Oklahoma, which I know is a sin to say in the state of Texas, but I'll be bold. It's nice to see everybody tonight. Louis said we were maybe a little tired during that last lecture, so I'm going to look for a lot more engagement during this one. I'm going to talk about topic criticisms for a little bit. Then once I run through my list, I'm going to let you all challenge me. I'm going to let anyone who wants to ask a question about any critique can ask me, and I'll answer it. All right, I do have veto power because not all critiques are created equal. So there are some that I will not talk to you about, but that's just because, I'm picky. But that's what we're going to do tonight. If people seem to get too tired, I am also the world's first certified instructor in ocean yoga, which is a topical form of yoga. So if I feel like we need to get up and get moving around a little bit, I will not be afraid to have us all do some ocean yoga. And there's some good ones too, so as a certified instructor, I'm really looking to do that. All right, so let me give you kind of a preview of the way that I lecture to groups, just so you know what's coming. Sometimes I use a PowerPoint. I don't like to do a PowerPoint for this one because it's so contingent on how much you're getting. I generally can explain any critique in 5 minutes or less, and I like to draw pictures. All right, so what I'm going to do is go through each one of these critiques, give a short explanation, and then we're going to kind of unpackage that explanation. So that's the format that we're going to go through. The first one I'm going to talk about is the capitalism critique. The Cap-K. The capitalism critique, there's a lot of different varieties of it. There's a lot of ins and outs to it, but it can be explained very simply using one picture. The thesis of the capitalism critique is that capitalism necessitates exploitation. All right, so here's big store. All right, and then sale, monies, okay? Woo, big store. Here is, tell me when you think you know what this is. Factory. There you go, factory. All right, here's their little loading dock. Here's a truck. There we go, now it's a truck. And then here is the truck going to the store. All right, loading up the goods, going to the store. This is the capitalist system. This is the capitalist economy. All right, so if you own the factory, you want to create what's called surplus value. Who's heard of that term before? Great, who wants to explain it to me? Yeah, it always happens. Okay, we got one. Yeah.
Having like an accessing commodities, that way you can control like the fluctuations of the market.
No, not entirely. I like that though. That's a smart strategy under capitalism. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any difference between the term surplus value and the term profit?
Surplus value encompasses profit plus, but yes, so that's the basic concept. Yes. So, the owner of the factory, what is their goal?
To make money.
Okay, how do they make money? Okay, selling stuff, right? So the goal of the factory owner is to sell their stuff for monies. All right? How does the factory owner make sure that they make as much money as possible off of this?
They pay their workers and they reduce their costs.
They want this, right, to be the biggest number possible. So they want the differential between what they pay to make something and what they get for it to be as large as possible. Does that make sense to everybody? How do you think they do that? Well, tell me what makes more sense. Do you think that they raise their prices? Why not?
People buy it from other places.
Yeah, right? There's like that market and people compete and they can't get away with that because people won't buy it. All right, so what's the other variable that you can manipulate?
The cost of production.
Yes, the cost of production. So the motivation for capitalism is, and this is where surplus value is. Surplus value is the added value of the working class. So surplus value is the value that you make between the factory, and the store. And the way that you make that is by exploiting resources. What types of resources am I talking about? Natural resources, good. So cheaper building your things out of natural resources, more natural resources, buying more of them, good. What was that?
Cheaper labor.
And cheaper labor, good. So in order for this, the system of capitalism encourages people to exploit. It encourages people to exploit other people by necessitating poverty, and it encourages people to exploit resources and the environment because they want to extract resources for as cheaply as possible. What are some ways that you can make the extraction of resources cheaper?
Automation.
Good, so automation, good. Extract resources quickly. What else? What hurts, what increases the price of extracting resources?
Safer working conditions.
Okay, working conditions, good.
Regulations.
Environmental regulations. Very good, okay? So, the profit motive of capitalism also is against environmental regulations. All right, so that's another way that it exploits the environment. Is everyone with me so far?
Yep.
That's the whole CapK. All right? You can talk about a lot of detail about that. You can talk about the ins and outs, but ultimately the entire criticism says that capitalism, because it has such a high value on surplus value, necessitates exploitation. Is everyone with me on that? All right, so what does that have to do with the oceans topic? Okay, exploitation of the oceans. Which part of the topic do you think would encourage exploitation of the oceans? Development, good. All right. And exploration, but we're going to talk about development first because development is the stronger link to the capitalism critique. All right, so why do we have to develop the ocean?
You want more resources?
Resources.
Resources, very good. So the capitalism critique would say that the affirmative's desire for resources is based on the obsession with surplus value. And that obsession allows us to exploit the ocean and the resources in the ocean. And what do you think would happen if what do you think will happen if we continue to exploit resources at the rate that we are now? Why? I mean, we're going to die, right?
Environmental degradation.
Okay, good. We're probably going to mess up the environment quite a bit. What's another thing that we can probably say is part and parcel of exploitation of the environment? Yeah, global climate change. All right, very good. So there's a pretty strong argument then that that form of exploitation that the affirmative engages in will lead to environmental destruction, perhaps even collapse of the ocean. Not like literally it's going to fall down, although it could, into the new ocean that they found under the ocean, but that's neither here nor there. So that is the generic capitalism critique against the development part of the topic. All right? And it would also probably have a lot of parts of it that say that we have to stop trying to find quick fix solutions to problems. All right? Who's heard of that term before? Quick fix. Who wants to define it without using the words quick and fix? Wow, still some people? All right, go ahead.
You temporarily stop the solution, stop the problem, but it disappears later again.
Okay, good. So, for example, if someone were to say, wow, we're like running out of oil on land, so we should start drilling for oil in the ocean. What's the problem with that? Yep, good. Everyone together. I like that. Good. Yeah, it's not like, oh, well, there's magical forever oil in the ocean, right? No, that's not how it works. So it is a quick fix solution, and that's the way that capitalism continues itself. All right, is that it continues to have quick economical solutions over longer-term, more costly solutions. What's an example of a longer-term, more costly solution to the use of oil? Yeah.
Clean energy, like alternative
Yeah.
energy.
Clean and alternative energy. Great. All right. I think you all get it. You get it? That's the CapK. That's a cap K for the development part of the topic. Now someone said, but also the exploration part of the topic. And I like where your heart's at. When I debated my senior year, I went for the cap K like 75% of the time. So please believe I went for worse links than explore the ocean. So I like that. Or ocean exploration. All right. Why do you think that links? Yeah.
Because in searching for new effective ways to maneuver ships throughout the ocean, especially like even if it's the Arctic area, researching the Arctic, they're looking for better ways to traverse that, as well as if they're looking at like fishing movements, fishing industry, as well as like cheaper and more efficient ways to move their goods from place to place. Okay, good. And this is where the exploration part of the topic is where the capitalism critique gets a lot into epistemological criticism. All right, does everyone remember from a couple minutes ago what epistemology is? Okay, and that's where you would say, look, the industries that are doing this research, all right, what do you have to do research?
Credentials.
Sure, credentials. Well, let's say I have all the credentials in the world. I'm Dr. Ocean. Not my last name is Ocean, but I'm like, I have a PhD in ocean stuff. All right, then what?
You have to have money to
Oh, you have to have money, right? You have to get funding in order to do this stuff. All right, so a lot of the people who are going for funds, etc., are doing so for profit motive. All right, this is kind of in my opinion, as an educator, a sad fact that even universities have become really kind of beholden to this capitalist system of grants and money production, whereby your research has to be something that's easily fundable and like pretty exciting. So, obviously the plan would just have the government magically fund these things, so it doesn't need corporations, right? So like that doesn't make very much sense. Probably like, Gabe, you're kind of being silly here, but think about this. Who writes those articles that say the plan is a good idea?
Scientists are funded by.
Yeah, scientists are like, hey, I want money in order to do this, and they're writing to a larger group than just the government, right? Now, there are some grants and some things that are pretty good, I guess, but a lot of that knowledge, as it's produced, gets produced in a capitalist economy. And by economy, I mean more than just money, right? An economy can be any system of exchange. So a capitalist economy of knowledge. And who do you think has the best access to that knowledge?
The elites.
Yeah, the elites, people with money, right? Again, how often have you all heard of the person who downloaded, have you heard of JSTOR?
Yeah.
Okay, have you heard of the person who downloaded a bunch of stuff from JSTOR and gave it away for free? Do you know what's on JSTOR?
Yeah.
Like academic articles, right? You have to pay a huge subscription fee to get on JSTOR, and when somebody did that and they downloaded a bunch of the stuff for free and then distributed it to people, they got put in jail for like longer than someone who murders somebody. Okay? So there is a strong capitalist control on systems of knowledge. So exploration, you can't just take it as neutral. The basic argument is that you can't take anything as simply neutral in the capitalist system because capitalism controls the means of production. And I don't just mean bringing stuff to the big sale at the big store. I mean the production of knowledge, the production of relationships between people, the productions of societies, the production of civilizations, the production of puppies and kittens, and all of that, okay? Capitalism controls the modes of production. That's the capitalism critique. I talk a little longer about that. I sometimes get a little excited about it. I apologize. Any questions about capitalism? Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Heidegger. Ooh. All right. One thing that you should know, I'm a K guy, so I don't know how to spell. So I'm guessing at the spelling here. Is it?
E-H-E-I-D-E-G-G-E-R.
There we go. Thank you. All right. Heidegger. The Heidegger critique. Let me tell you a story. In case you can't tell, I learn in weird ways. So instead of a picture for the Heidegger K, I've got a story for you, okay? And this is Heidegger. This is Heidegger. This explains all of Heidegger's story. So there are two people. All right? One person lives in a city. That person, let's call them Stevana. All right? That's a weird name. I like it. I'm going to name my kids that. All of them. So Stevana lives in a city. Stevana needs to get some shoes. What does Stevana do? Goes to the shoe market, right? A shoe store. I like the shoe market. That sounds very fancy. I like that. I want to go to a shoe market. Yes, they go to the shoe market. Okay, what if Stevana, they're about to make dinner and they want a knife? Where do they go? Yeah, the knife boutique. You are awesome. Yes, the knife boutique. Beautiful. Yes. Okay. Well, what if Stevana then, after that, done with that great new shoes, got a great new knife, finished dinner, but is still kind of hungry and probably wants an ice cream cake?
They go to the ice
Yeah, they go to Gabe's birthday party, even if it's not his real birthday. Bring me ice cream cake. Okay. Yes. So that's Stevana's life. Okay. Now let's imagine instead of Stevana, there's someone named Paulina. Okay? And Paulina, I like weird names, I know. And Paulina lives in the woods. Okay? Paulina lives in the woods. Well, Paulina has not been out of the woods in years. Paulina has forgotten how to get out of the woods. Okay? But Paulina needs shoes too. What does Paulina do when she needs shoes? Out of what?
Deer skin.
Something, right? She sees the world around her and she says, I guess those are shoes. I can use those as shoes. Well, what if Paulina needs a knife? Lifestyle. All right, then Paulina figures it out. Right? She figures it out. What about if Paulina needs an ice cream cake for my birthday, even if it's not my birthday? Yeah, she's out of luck, okay? There's no way to make an ice cream cake in the forest. So, but that right there, the difference between Stevana, I don't know, okay, yes, and Paulina is the Heidegger critique, okay? So Heidegger talks about technology, all right? Technology. And more specifically, Heidegger is talking about technological thought. Okay? So would Heidegger be like totally pro your laptops? I don't know, right? But that's not exactly what he was talking about. All right? So you're using your laptop. It's like, okay. So technological thought instead is a form of calculative thought. Right? Technological thought is a form of thought whereby you consider everything for its specialized utility. So in our example, Stevana is living a very technological life, right? Whereby everything is utilized for its maximum, for its utility, even before you need it, right? So when Stevana needed shoes, it wasn't, I will create shoes out of something, right? It's I'm going to go to this place where there's tons and tons of shoes, and I will simply pick the one of my fancy, right? When Stevana needed a knife, she did not wait and put together and think, and meditate on how to make a knife and how to do that. They went to a store where there were knives and tons of knives in every variety, and she could simply pick from one, right? The ice cream cake, we're not going to criticize ice cream cake. So, in Heidegger's terms then, how many Heideggerians do we have in here? How many people who are up with Heidegger? Okay, good. Because Heidegger was a Nazi, so that's good. That's very good. So, Heidegger referred to these things, that accumulation of shoes, right? That accumulation of knives, that is standing reserve. All right? That is an accumulation of objects that we have utilized that we don't even need. All these extra shoes, just in case. Okay? I like my flip-flops, but it's a little absurd that I got to pick out of 20 flip-flops. I couldn't even tell the difference between half of them.
Need all this stuff.
Okay. This example oftentimes strike a chord. So yeah. But that is the Heidegger impact, is standing reserve. When we live a highly technological life, we necessitate the creation of standing reserve. We need a shoe market. We can't just make shoes when we need them. We need an excess of shoes. What does that encourage then? What becomes the ultimate standing reserve? People? Sure, there are some people like Liddell McWhorter that talk a lot about people as standing reserve. But even more fundamental than that. The waste? Consumption. So what is the standing reserve? What is the thing?
The earth.
Yes, the earth. The whole thing. So the Heidegger K in a simple drawing is, see, we got Africa here, a little bit of that, got Italy coming down here, got some Spain and stuff, a little Britain,
That's actually pretty good.
Asia, we got a little, hey Australia, we got maybe New York, or Maine, sorry, South America popping out here, we have a little there, something up there, that's right there. That's right there. Come on! All right, so the Heidegger critique says, wah, wah. That's the Heidegger critique. The Heidegger critique is that our way of life and our relationship to each other and the world around us necessitates that we destroy the entirety of the earth. We make the entirety of the earth our standing reserve, so that we can have 20 choices of shoes when we need them.
So how do we get from a standing reserve in a shoe store to destroying the entire earth and making all one big standing reserve?
Because the extraction of resources, because the shoe store is an example. The argument is that the whole earth, if our relationship to existence is one where the earth is simply a resource for us to utilize, then the entire thing is just potentiality of our consumption and utilization.
I mean, but isn't it just isn't the difference between Stevana and Paulina simply one of scale?
Absolutely, and that's the difference between technological thought and living. All right, Heidegger's argument is not simply that we should all die, right, or that we should never wear shoes. Heidegger's argument is Heidegger's argument is that when we engage in technological thought instead of authentic being in the world, that we are forced to create standing reserve. So yes, it is a question of scale. I like that. I like that a lot. It is ultimately reduced to a question of scale. Heidegger's argument, so his alternative is often do nothing. But his argument is not, you can't do anything, right? Heidegger's argument is that instead, you need to live an authentic life, an authentic relationship, which does not simply view things around you to be utilized. So if I need a pair of shoes, and I'm like, well, I can rip up a little bit of this carpet and tie it together, and I'll have shoes. That's probably not going to destroy the whole earth. But if I think I need 20 choices of flip-flops within 2 miles of where I am so I can drive there and back in my 8 V8 truck thing or whatever, that probably is going to destroy the earth, right? Because that mentality does not separate the value or authenticity of the earth. It's not, oh, this beautiful carpet, I can mold it to my foot and we can live as one because I need to. It's, I want stuff and I want a lot of it. Okay? Yeah.
How do you determine the level at which the scale becomes unsustainable? Like at what,
The creation of standing reserve.
So at the creation of standing reserve is where the scale becomes unsustainable.
Where your relationship to others is one where you necessitate standing reserves, then it's not sustainable. Yeah.
If the technological thought is to pretty much know that how you are living and what you need to do that is not just utilizing everything,
Mhm.
at what point does your thoughts stop the impact? Like, if you're not living the same way, but you
Very,
do knowledge.
very interesting question. So, a central thesis that Heidegger has is the difference between thought and action. Heidegger says that part and parcel of the problem is that our necessity for action is a form of technological thought. Okay, because we think, I need to utilize this time space, and I need to have act and create a surplus of actions so that I know I'm doing something, right? So that creates then time, hence Heidegger's book, Being and Time, becomes something that we utilize, okay?
Is the same impact still? Like, whenever you're talking
The
about
impact,
action versus
yes,
thought?
yes, because the impact is the thing that justifies, all right? So for example, with that obsession with action and the need to create the most efficient time ever, right? That also justifies the uptake in efficiency of all modes of production, right? Because time is something that we need a surplus, a standing reserve of. We need time, extra time to be there for us to utilize. So Heidegger says that we should go back to meditative thought, okay? And that the problem is that as long as we necessitate action, we are always already reproducing that obsession with technological thought, because the obsession with action itself is a technology. It's an attempt to create time in a more efficient way to create a standing reserve. So, is it the same impact? Well, the Heidegger impact, the way it solves the impact is through that thought-action dichotomy that we talked about. The alternative would say, well, we should not do things until we've meditated on how we do those and how that affects our relationship to others. Yeah?
Is there anything more like this notion of standing reserve? Is it reducible to just waste and overproduction, or is it more complex than that?
It's, you know, in a lot of ways, the most useful, important parts are reducible to just waste and overproduction. But there's also a part of it that is more metaphysical. All right, and Heidegger, like the ontology part of Spanos, is taken from Heidegger. Okay, Heidegger is ontological. Heidegger is more concerned with the relationship and the relationality than kind of the material surplus value. So he's more concerned with the way we interact with the world and what that justifies. So the most important parts, you know, impact framing wise, is the overproduction, the creation of waste, and all of that. But there's a larger ontological impact about the way we relate to one another. And is it a beautiful, authentic relationship if it's just based in utility? And that's kind of the impact that Heidegger is really interested in asking and answering. Yeah?
Does Heidegger's hypocrisies with him being a Nazi, etc., create a deficit for the critique as a debate argument?
It can, yes. The problem, and we'll talk about this tomorrow morning when we talk about argumentation theory. The problem is that you want to move from an ad hom to an argument. All right. So simply saying Heidegger is a Nazi, then like high-fiving is, you know, not really going to get it done. But no, I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just saying.
I mean, more or less, like, why was he not? Like, we can definitely tell he was meditatively thinking as he let hundreds or millions of people burn in gas chambers. But I mean, like, I'm saying, like, with the ultra-nationalists, like, how ultra-nationalism, like, the Nazi Party was, like, how they were technologically driven, how does it not make it hypocrisy for Heidegger as, like, a paid Nazi thinker?
Oh, how did his criticism not say Nazism was bad?
Like,
Is that what you're asking?
Nationalist, technologically driven society, and he was a Nazi thinker.
Yeah, and that is a huge contradiction in Heidegger, and that is something that's very well written about, is the idea that part of the reason that Heidegger's philosophy is so dangerous and is beholden to Nazism is not just because he participated in, you know, Nazi Germany and ran a school that kicked out all of the Jewish professors and did all of that stuff, but it is because his philosophy takes this big change, okay, around when he started being associated with the Nazis, where he started not being as concerned with the authentic relationship of all beings, but instead of das Man, right? The kind of like the Übermensch we talked about, but the ideal man who had a good relationship with nature, and he felt that things like fascism were good ways to achieve the authentic relationship with nature. So that is a contradiction, and that is something that Heidegger moved from his original work to being influenced by his relationship with Nazism.
And Heidegger's writing would, like when he's referring to like this Superman of sorts,
Yeah.
is an isolated sect of human beings. It's not Nietzsche's Superman.
Right.
It's a different.
Yes, it's one that has a very particular relationship to the world around them. It is one that he thought was very easily fulfilled by fascism. All right. Heidegger, yes?
When he presents the concept, does he do it as something that happened in the past that we should revert back to, or a new way of thinking that we should adapt to?
For the kind of meditative thought? Yeah, he kind of goes back and forth. He definitely says that there was, a more authentic existence before capitalism and technology and all of that stuff. But it's not that he doesn't think we can't get there again. It's also something that he thinks that we should strive for. And he thinks we should strive for it for both the ontological reasons and, like Andy was saying, but the best critiques mix these. It's also a very epistemological argument because Heidegger's epistemology is one where knowledge is only produced authentically. Okay? And that's more his future forward version of his argument. Let me explain that real quickly since that was brought up. Heidegger's really hard to explain in 5 minutes. Okay, so Heidegger's epistemology argument says that knowledge is only authentic if it is not controlled. Okay, so Heidegger says that there is a series of things called revealing and concealing, and that is a process. In an authentic relationship with the world will constantly reveal itself to you, okay? But you also have the potential to conceal authentic parts of that world by the way you look at something, okay? So let me give an example. If I were to look at a bridge was revealed to me, okay? And I said, oh, I'm going to use that bridge to go over. I have now concealed any potential for that bridge other than a utility for me to get from point A to point B. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? So Heidegger would say, when I have used technological thought to know the world, my epistemological stance, that is always incomplete and inauthentic because anything other than something's utility is concealed to us. Does that make sense? So that's kind of how he says we should relate into the future, is to allow the world to reveal and conceal itself to us as opposed to concealing anything outside of something's utility. Yes?
So is it possible, under Heidegger's thought, to see things for more than just their utility, but also see their utility?
Yes, it may be possible, but I think that it would be very complicated. And I think that it would be a very limited situation where that would be true. And it depends how Heideggerian you go, and it depends how you interpret some of his work. There are some people who would answer that and say, no, there's no form of utilization that doesn't conceal the rest of an object or a thing. But other people would say, well, there's some flexibility on that. The more realistic Heideggerians, which is a hilarious term I just made up, would say that, yes, you can have some balance of revealing and concealing, and it's not an absolute process. The more strict Heideggerians may disagree with that. Okay. Does that make sense? Heidegger? Yes?
How would you use that in an argument, though?
Oh, cool, yeah. All I have in my notes is tell the story. I get so excited about the story, I forget. So, the argument then is especially for, it's for either kind of app. For a development app, you would say that the affirmative views the ocean simply for its utility. So if someone's like, we should go drill in the ocean. You're like, look, maybe we should just let the ocean be. Like maybe we could go swim in the ocean. You know, don't relieve yourself in the ocean. That'd be kind of rude. Just go swim in it. But why do we need to drill that ocean? Why is that ocean there for us to drill? That ocean's there just to be. Let's let the blobfish and the dragonfish and all those weird, the vampire squid, all of those, let's let them be. Let's stop messing with the ocean. Let's let them be. All right? And then they would say that if you don't do that, that then you just create the entire ocean as a standing reserve.
Would it apply to, like, because on the exploration part of it, would it apply if you're, like, constantly, like, sending more ships through there to, like, dissect and, like, look at all the animals and stuff?
Yes, exactly. This is why I wanted to mention this part as well. Because the connection to the exploration part of it is the criticism of epistemology. Is this idea that, well, once we know the ocean, we know what to do with the ocean, right? So that idea is one where we think we're revealing knowledge about the ocean. That knowledge already exists, all right? The ocean, by the way, before we were around here, the ocean was doing just fine. Okay? It's not like we have done, the ocean's like, oh, thank God for people, right? No. The ocean actually knows itself way better than we know it, all right? And all of the animals in the ocean know it too. So the critique would be, you are obsessed with the ocean revealing itself to you, but when we study it, we're actually concealing, because there's no way we can understand the ocean, right? We can only see one thing, and that knowledge will only be used for one thing. Does that make sense? Great. All right. The exploration critiques. There's a lot of these. The basic idea is that the ideology of exploration is one which is deeply rooted in colonial understandings of relationships, okay, and kind of imperialist understandings. Do people understand what I mean by both of those terms? All right. So the desire to explore, right? Where has that gotten humanity? No, wrong. Okay, who said that? Who said to America? No, it didn't. We were here already. Go home, everybody, okay? My people were here already. We didn't need you to find America. All right? Humanity already knew about America. Yeah.
Exploration led to the enslavement and killing of hundreds of millions of people.
So we have the genocide of Native and Indigenous Americans, Mexicans, and South Americans. We have slavery. Okay. What else?
Probably led to capitalism.
Yeah, certainly encouraged it, right? For sure. Yeah, exploitation of goods and services. All right, so what's the good thing that exploring led to? No one said anything good yet. Come on. Smallpox. Wow. Not cool, dude. No, smallpox joke's not really going to slide here. Not acceptable.
It led to James Cameron's Titanic.
Yeah, Titanic. It did lead to the Titanic. Great film. Great soundtrack. I sing it to myself every day. But that's basically the argument. This is a very simple critique. It's that we don't ever explore things just for funsies. Okay? We do not usually, when we explore things, our immediate reaction to that exploration is to exploit. We're like, well, they both start with kind of the same letters. Yeah, 4 of the same. No, maybe 5. All right? And that's not a coincidence. It might actually be a coincidence. But we're going to say, if you're running this K, you will say that's not a coincidence. That explore and exploit both start with the same 5 letters. That's a link. I voted on worse. But the exploration K just says the motivation that we as people have had to explore things has never been really good for the thing we're exploring. So the aft to be like, oh, well, I'm sure everything is going to be fine with the ocean. Just like, well, I am a student of history, and I don't think that's true. All right? So it's just a criticism of this desire to explore, and there's a lot of angles on it. There's colonialism, imperialism, capitalism, some feminism critiques that all have different reasons why the connection between exploration and exploitation, it almost always happens. Any questions about that? That one's really easy. Great. I'm doing better than I thought.
Where's the literature for the exploration? Like, who are we looking?
I don't know any names. Andy, can you think of any name? It's tough. It's because it's kind of small.
Rain check me. I'll find this within.
Yeah, we'll find something out. We'll look into it for you, and we'll get that answer. Max, do you know?
Know what?
No,
The-
the answer is.
Just look it up. Try to find exploration K, so we can send people off with some sites. You got it. All right. The next critique that we're going to talk about is anthropocentrism. Yes. All right. This critique, I mean, I don't really think it needs that much explanation. All right. Let me draw a quick picture here. All right, this is a cat. All right. This cat's wearing pants and has a little bit of a belly. It's fine. All right. This cat is very proud of the way they look. That it's not wearing a shirt. It's summer. It's a cat. It's filled with fur. Come on. That's a little pet. It's just a little pet. Yeah. Thank you. A tuft of fur. It's distinguished. Okay? It's like a bow tie for cats. I just made that up. Okay. And here, this is going to be disappointing. Here's a person. Okay? Okay. So the anthroke says
That you would have drawn the person better if you were at the center.
ta-da! All right? We shouldn't be mean to cats even if they're wearing pants. Okay? That is the anthropocentrism K. There is not a difference between people. We're animals too. I don't even know how to say it. There's not a difference between animals and animals. Animals and animals. There's no difference. It's like you say animal, I say animal. All right? That doesn't even work in the song. There's no difference. The anthropocentrism K says that humans have created an obsession with themselves that makes them think that they're the only animal that's not an animal. That doesn't even make sense. And the whole thing, we're saying, well, we're so much smarter than animals. We're not even animals. That's dumb. That's not smart, right? We are animals. Animals are animals. When we start to think that we are greater than animals, what happens?
We kill them.
Bye-bye, kitty. Yeah, I know. Anthro sucks. It's rude. It kills kittens, okay? That's the critique. That's anthro.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's like speciesism, then like a sub-part of like anthro then?
I mean, yeah, if you like all animals but really hate one species, then that's just like pretty rude. I don't know if that's like a K. That's just rude. But I do believe there's a rude K. So, but yeah, speciesism is it can also be like you think the human species is better than an animal species or something like that. I have not talked to enough animals to know if they exhibit speciesism. I do know my cat hates dogs, so we'll leave it at that.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Well, there's someone behind you, and then we'll get right to you. Yeah. No, you're right.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I could be wrong, but isn't anthro human beings are equal to all of the natural world, or is it simply animals?
That's deep eco, which we're.
Here you go.
Yeah. Anthropocentrism is the anthro part is human, and the centrism part is where you think humans are the center of everything. And there are, you can incorporate that into a larger deepological argument, which is about Gaia, the earth goddess, and how we're all one and the same. And that's deep ecology. So that's slightly different. But that's anthro. So the anthro debate then would be something about this topic, like you go into the ocean and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so like what would be like the alt frame? Or just like, would it be like a flat ontology like OO is?
That is one alt to anthropocentrism. And triple O, honestly, I love talking about triple O, but that is one that is not anywhere close to one you can explain in 5 minutes. So we can talk about that at some time at lunch or dinner or something if you want to. But that is an example. But basically the alternative is just view them as the same. Stop thinking that your stuff is more important than their stuff. Yeah?
So do you try and change the impact framework here to argue, like, since most apps arguing, if they're arguing from a util perspective, are arguing like in favor of saving human life, you say flip that, don't just talk about how many human lives we're saving. Our framework, our impact framework needs to include how many animal lives of any kind.
Exactly. So there is a lot of this critique is impact framing. And it says that the justification and denial of violence against animals, non-human animals, is a really big impact. And it's like genocide levels, right? Like if you think about factory farms, all right? Do you know how many cows we kill in America every day?
A lot.
Yeah, I don't, right? But it's a lot. I know a lot of things, and that's too big for me to know, okay? That is too big of a number for me to understand. It's above 100. I can't count that high. I don't know. But it's a lot of cows. Okay, how many chickens?
12.
Even more. We kill even more chickens than cows. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds right. Right? And then you have pigs. All right, a lot of pigs as well. And it's all because we don't think they're equal to us. So the argument you would make is that traditional utilitarianism only is utilitarianism for who? Right? And a less anthropocentric utilitarianism is one which protects animals on the same level. And then you do impact calculus from there. Yeah?
Let's just say like we hit like a middle passage after like on this topic, about anthro.
There is very good literature about the root cause for anthropocentrism. I've definitely seen people do that. The problem is depending on the type of middle passage app. There's not just one. But the middle passage app, if they're reading a lot of the anti-blackness stuff, have a really good argument that black folks are already considered in the same hierarchy. Because anthropocentrism is really a critique of hierarchies. Okay? That's really what it is. This is a cute picture, I know. But it's really a critique of hierarchies. So the argument, the no-link argument and the offense argument that they can make is that black folks are already considered non-human. Okay? So they are not in that evaluative framework. And that's the argument that you would have to answer. That argument is pretty persuasive when you read the arguments. But the upside that anthropocentrism has is that it has a very good genealogy that it establishes a strong root cause claim. And if you remind me like a couple times, I'll remember to get you some sites for that. Yes?
Can you explain the suicide alternative?
So, the global suicide alternative. So there's this crazy, I shouldn't use that term. There is this out there group called the Collective Human Suicide something, something, something. All right? And this group says that the damage that humans do is so bad that from a utilitarian perspective, we should all just commit suicide. And the reason is because there's no way for us to ever have a relationship that does not exploit animals and non-human beings. This is often combined with an argument that's like rocks are people too. Okay, FYI, they're not. Okay, that's a pretty easy, bam, that one's answered. But yeah, rocks are not people. But the argument is basically like there's no way for humans to exist that does not hurt more things than it helps. Because it only helps us. And it hurts everything else. So it's an ethical claim that people should make the decision to commit suicide. The problem with this argument is that the alternative is more kind of like force everyone to commit suicide, and that's murder. Okay, that is not collective decision to do
We
suicide.
already murder animals?
Yeah.
Like, ooh.
Okay, sure. You know, two wrongs don't make a right. You know, one, you
But
can't.
complaining that we murder people to
If a animal murders us, they're not going to jail. Okay, so we're fine with that.
No, I'm saying that like,
Raise bears and release them.
but like the argument is that like if they're like you're killing people, that's murder. The fact
No, the
that-
argument that group makes is that individuals should make the decision on their own to commit suicide. The alternative, if it fiats that, is murdering everybody. That's the argument you would make, but I would go for murder bear. Okay, yes, so that is that. Does that make sense? The collective suicide? Yes.
When you say that, like, we think of animals as less than us because we kill them, what about, like, murder, like cannibalism or things like that?
Yeah, there are very few cultural groups who engage in cannibalism, but certainly the way that you do that is also based on hierarchies, right? So is that kind of what you're asking? Like,
Well, also, like, because humans kill other humans also, what's the difference between humans killing other humans and humans killing animals?
I would say, you know, I hate to be the like resident quantitative data dude, but I would say that the numbers are staggering against we murder other people too. We definitely, with very little, like you don't see, for example, you don't see the University of North Texas being like, hey, everybody, come down here for lunch. We're going to murder people, right? Like that doesn't really happen. And if it did, I mean, I've been working here for a while, actually a week. I think I would have seen it in a week. That seems like a weekly event. But I don't think they're doing that, okay? But what they are doing is bringing us to a cafeteria every day. And have any of you seen the posters where they basically advertise, like, here's an adorable cow. We murdered it. Think about it. Have you seen that poster, that painting, that mural?
So is the difference basically that we are like murdering other species for our consumption?
I mean, that's part of it, but it's also just a thing. Look, murder is not a common thing. When people murder other people, we're not just like, oh, okay. That's weird. You know, we're like, oh my God, they murdered. So like, if you saw someone get murdered, you wouldn't be like, whew, okay, well, there you go. You know, that's life. Okay? But if you saw a cow get slaughtered, you'd probably be like, well, that's going to be a good burger. Okay? And that's the difference. Humans murdering other humans is exceptional. Us murdering animals is literally every day. Yeah.
So when other species kill for fun, such as cats or chimpanzees, does that not meet the...
Not all of them do, and it's not always for like what's fun to a cat. I have a cat. Tell me, please. So then, how can you study that? How can you know how they killed?
Until it's exhausted before it kills it. There's no mercy involved at all.
Yeah, well, cats are jerks, but that does presume that cats understand, that have the level of comprehension, right?
Making a hierarchy of comprehension.
Well, there is, but that's also a question of language, which Derrida gets into with animality. But your example is also, sure, species kill other species and animals hunt for food, but you're not hunting for food. You have
No,
not
cats
hunt.
kill for fun, as in like they go get birds and they beat the crap out of them until they're at an end of their life.
Yeah, cats are jerks. We've already said that. Humans are jerks. You're a jerk. I'm a jerk. So why are we better? Why are we better than them?
Turks and animals.
Why are we better than? Yes. Also, so exactly. Some animals are they are carnivores. We are not. We don't have to eat meat. Trust me, I didn't for like 10 years.
How did you survive?
I survived pretty okay. I was not wasting away. Okay. Yes.
At the point that the suicide alternative
Yes.
argues that we should do that because we cannot exist with a relationship to the world, that we don't exploit it, could you then argue that that's because we're actually not enlightened. So like the cat, like we may think we're more intellectual, but really it's just reduced back down to our biogenetics, and this is just how we function, i.e. it can't be evaluated on a moral or an ethical scale anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely arguments that are made that say that that part of humanity is something that is just inherent, right? And you can make that type of argument for sure, and just say, yeah, that's just kind of what we do. Other animals do weird stuff too, and that's a good, I think there's development there. Is that what you were?
Is that a viable position?
There are a lot. There's a surprising amount of evidence, not that surprising because it's the way our world works, that defends that humans really are the best. All right, and that the exploitation that we do is something that is hardwired. Anthropocentrism is hardwired, and there's a productive reason for that. There's an evolutionary reason for that. We are the best, and our knowledge production is so much higher than other animals because we learn to exploit. Yeah.
So isn't the point of this just like that we shouldn't devalue animals because we are better than them?
Yes. That's it. It's like we shouldn't have a hierarchy where we just think because we're humans, we're better than animals. All right. I know a lot of people that are way worse than my cat. Okay. Hitler. All right. My cat's way better than Hitler. Mussolini.
Heidegger.
All right. Heidegger. All right. I'd rather get dinner with Heidegger than my cat.
Tools at their command to do those, like at their disposal to commit.
But you are now you're thinking that cats and humans even think the same. That's rude.
Are you saying somewhere out there there's a cat?
All right. All right, we're going to move this discussion on. You hate animals. That's cool. Cats rule. All right. Anthro. That's Anthro. The last critique we're going to talk about. Sorry we ran out of time. There have been a lot of really good questions. I want to give you time to get back to the dorm. Yeah. When do you have to be back there by?
9:15.
9:15?
No, we have until 9:15.
Oh, we have them until 9:15?
I think.
Yes! Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do a few more, yeah.
What's the K though?
Well, I was just going to talk about, well, actually, the security K is pretty simple. I can talk about that one real quick, and then maybe have people give me suggestions, and I'll take one of them and do that one and talk about that. Okay, so the security K, the best versions of security K are Heideggerian in a lot of senses, and that is the epistemological sense, the revealing, concealing. In other words, if our only approach to problems is one where we see them as threats that we have to get rid of, then everything in the world is a threat. Okay? And if everything's a threat, what do we have to do?
Kill it.
Eliminate it. Right. So the security K says that we should stop thinking of the world around us as threats, because then we naturally conceal all other parts of things and only see them as threats. Okay?
That was short.
Yeah, that's one of the really easy ones.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why answers like threats are real actually do, answer the security K. It's like, no, but for realsy. This is a problem. So you're right. Every other threat's fake, No WMDs in a rock shirt. But monsters in the ocean. Real problem.
But does, never mind, you don't know.
We'll have plenty of time to talk about any of your questions about Ks. So, all right. So, Andy, did you figure out the
author or the time?
The time.
The schedule that Louis gave just says till 9:15, so I'm trying to go through and figure out if there's a deadline at the dorms.
Okay.
But as of right now, I'm sticking to 9:15.
Yeah, you want to just
Okay, so I'm gonna keep you all at 9:15. Is that okay? So we can have a little bit more. You all having fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Some people are like, All right. Well, in 10 minutes, the people who aren't having fun, you can put headphones in, and then we'll keep talking with the rest. Okay. So that's the security K. Security K is just we become so obsessed with threats that everything's a threat, and then we act out against everything and we hate it. What are some things people want? What are some Ks you maybe have heard of, you want to know about? Don't have to be about the topic, but it'd be cooler if they were.
Dualism.
How is Levinas different than Heidegger? And where do those?
Okay, so I'm just making a list here. So you want Levinas, okay? V. Heidegger. Dualism, okay? What are some other ones? Yeah.
What's Levinas?
What's Levinas? Levinas, okay, I'll do this one real quick. Levinas is an ethicist who created, his theory is about the Holocaust and how did the Holocaust happen. So he's one of the post-Holocaust, he actually survived the Holocaust, I think. I'm pretty sure about that one. And so he's one of the wave of ethicists who came out after the Holocaust that tried to explain how did the Holocaust happen. And his argument is that it is because we devalued the relationship to the other. So Levinas says that we have an absolute and ethical obligation to the face of the other above all else. And so it's just, his big concept is the face of the other and our infinite responsibility to that.
Is there anything unique about the face of the other as opposed to the other?
There's a big debate about that in philosophy. There's a lot of criticisms of Levinas. They're just like, why the face? Levinas's argument is that the face is something, and this is back to anthro, the face is something that humans uniquely, it's like you could say, oh, the other, and you're like, oh, whatever, right? But then it's like, the other's face is in your face. And Levinas is, if that's an ethical pull, then things like the Holocaust aren't possible, because the other is the face of the other. That's the emotion, the tears,
So
the
it's
horror.
like putting a face on the other.
Yes, yes.
You know, you like,
Yeah, that's sufficient for now. Yeah.
Afro-pessimism.
Afro-pessimism. There is going to be a whole lecture on that.